Hey guys, welcome back to the Loveonaroll show video podcast number two. I'm with my good friend and my colleague, Alex Normen from Axis Built. Thank you so much for joining me, Alex.
Pleasure to be here.
I'm really grateful you could take the time to join me and tell the people about your background.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Alex Normen. Actually, I live in Miami at the moment, but I am from New Jersey. But to spent many years in New York, and then have lived pretty much around the country and around the world. So, my background, I've always been in advertising. At a very early age, I've been always interested and fascinated with connecting to people and finding out the deep human truths of consumers and of audiences in different parts of the country. And I started my career actually in the garment industry. This is like, it wasn't fashion, so it wasn't glamorous. And we were doing licensed branded apparel in large retail stores like Walmart and Kmart and these kinds of things. At the time, it was really about finding and understanding what people wanted to wear in various different parts of the country. We were focusing on creating apparel for uh, um, Latinos and African Americans in places like Decatur, Georgia, and El Paso, Texas. So at the early age, I was really trying to understand human truth and human needs and behaviors and attitudes, and trying to match that with products. Got into advertising quickly after because I felt that wow, I needed to learn and be more sophisticated in marketing. And what better way to do that is go to an advertising agency? Little did I know, but that was a fun experience. With some big brands very early on in my career. I moved out to Los Angeles for that. Meanwhile, I'd always been fascinated with the built environment, and really thought that I one day should have become a an architect. I wish I was at one point, and but really was squarely focused on advertising, but also very much interested in the creative aspect of the business. I was a strategist in advertising, spent a lot of time doing a lot of consumer research and translating those consumer insights into brand campaigns. And then I got into digital when that was a big thing in the early 2000s. Well, actually, the late 90s, but then early 2000s more so. And from that experience, had some early days in social media. And back then, it was called community management software, and we were doing message boards for eBay and AOL, if you can remember that. And so that was really a fun experience, and that was also about how we find ways of being able to build and foster community online and connect with people in various different parts of the country and the world through interest and through dialogue and through conversation. So that was a really fascinating experience. And then soon went into a space with called user experience design and interface design with an agency at the time that was innovating in that category. And so we built some really fascinating systems. Once again, it was also about how do humans interact with content and information in a physical environment. So it was touch screens, large out-of-home monitors and access points. It was really cool stuff, and traveled around the world. I opened up an office in London, lived in Southern California, then Northern California, and ended up in Detroit, where I was working with Ford Motor Company, helping to build out their online content platform. So I was also in the content business, all of which I'm very fascinated. Started a couple companies, sold a couple companies. A couple companies went bust. Like the usual. You hopefully you win more than you lose, but you always lose. And did that for quite some time. And so that's kind of my background in a nutshell.
Wow, you've had a pretty fascinating career, I gotta say. So how did your career and your background and your experiences kind of influence you to start Axis Build?
Well, thank you for asking. I mean, Excess Built is a business that's very dear to my heart. In 2019, I was in Detroit, and we had business was going as it was going, and my dad, who unfortunately suffered from Alzheimer's and kidney failure, so he was doing dialysis twice a week, and heart disease. And my mother, who was the sole caretaker, was really struggling with taking care of him and was looking for help. And so I dropped everything that I was doing and I came down to Miami, Florida, to help them figure out the next sort of chapter in their lives. And they had lived in a house. There was some issues that he had there, so they thought about moving to a assisted living, independent living community in Palm Beach. That was too much of a assisted living situation. It was too much of an end of life kind of environment. They weren't happy with that, and so they were looking for places to live where he could age comfortably and safely at home. And I was helping with that process. And during that period, as my dad's conditions were deteriorating, I was realizing that there was two problems. That one was we didn't have access to a real estate agency or individuals that could help us find a home that understood our problems and our issues, and that could talk to us in a way that we could relate, that could really figure out the right solution as opposed to putting us, throwing us in assisted living or throwing us in an independent care facility or throwing us in a place that had a couple of grab bars and so forth. And I was looking for a bit more of a comprehensive empathy, if you will, about the living environment. So we learned that that was the issue. The second was once we moved in, we realized that we needed stuff to be done to the apartment and to the condo in order for him to live comfortably and safely, along with my mother, who was also able-bodied. And we didn't, talking to contractors, talking to architects, it was like talking to a blank canvas. We didn't know what we didn't know. We had no idea what we were asking for. And the architects and the construction companies and designers didn't know how to ask or what to ask us for. So we find ourselves staring at each other, trying to figure out, well, how do we make an environment that's comfortable for my dad? So I realized that we needed to do two things. My mother actually went out and created a company called Access Perfect Homes, which is was initially a division of Keller Williams that specialized in serving the needs of people who have special needs. So in this case, it was seniors who were aging in place. And then I created Access Built in order to focus on that last meter. When you move in, what are the things that you need to that need to exist in your home to make you personally more comfortable? So it's personalized assessments, personalized design, and personalized implementation, execution of construction of a space that is perfect. And we started off doing kitchens, bathrooms, very simple adjustments and adaptations to parts of the home. And then we started to grow and do more parts, living areas, patio, external areas, patios, and so forth. And then we moved to doing ground ups. And what we realized is that there's allowing people to live more comfortably in the home, but then there's also trying to find ways to allow people to live and operate and more comfortably at work, at play, in learning environments, at travel. So travel institutions like airports and buses, bus terminals, these kinds of things, along with play, which is, includes hospitality and retail and shop. So when we started looking at how we were thinking about space, we recognized that a lot of the built world can benefit from that type of thinking. And my background, in really driving into the deeper human truth helped me ask the right questions and bring in a team of professionals and experts to also dig in and ask the right questions so that we understood our consumers, our clients, and our clients, our, sort of, commercial side of our business, to sort of bridge that gap. So everyone is more comfortable and spaces are more equitable and inclusive.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that you started this company. And what is amazing about it is I know Access Built. I don't know about Access Perfect Homes, but I do know that Access Built has been around since 2020, and it's pretty impressive. I won't go into details that are internal, but it's just pretty impressive the amount of clients you've worked with, the buildings that you've worked on, the number the numbers in terms of profit on the buildings that you've generated is incredible. And I know that I'm I'm honored to be working with the team and everything like that. And really, hopefully we can help people just have a more barrier free and more inclusive environment and more universally designed as well.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Garrett. And I really appreciate all of your support and your involvement in the work that we're doing. I mean, we pride ourselves in being able to do more not only for our clients but also for the community. One of the reasons why I'm trying to get more out there and talk about what we do. I know there's a lot of advocacy and individuals out there talking about the great work that's happening around the country and around the world. But it also, it's one community at a time, it's one individual at a time. As much as you think that people really understand what we do, a lot don't. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on our end to communicate and spread the word about not only the work, but also the benefit and the value that goes beyond just the people that we serve, right? I think that your point about universal design is quite universal in the sense that everyone benefits. And I find that in design, there are many examples across history, not just in kitchens and bathrooms, that well thought design, sort of a design just so that's well thought and well produced and created, serves more people. And sometimes we very easily cut corners and or just kind of shoot to build for the lowest common denominator, and don't really spend time thinking intelligently or smartly or deeply about the impact of what we're building. And so universal design, the principles of universal design really help kind of open the aperture to allow for designers and architects and creators to think broadly about the people that they serve. And so obviously you're very a staunch proponent of this, and so am I. And I feel that we need to spread the word and let people know that there's just a better way.
Of course. And one of the things that I love about what you talk about is when it comes to universal design and all of the concepts that come with it is friction points and how it's important to understand friction points and access points and all that stuff. Did you want to talk more about that? Because I think people will find it fascinating.
Yeah, I would actually, because there was a point in time where, sort of getting into the space and recognizing that there's a lot of language around functional barriers and functional challenges for people with various levels of abilities. And the word barrier to me, I was very uncomfortable with, because a barrier to me means a blockade. It means a wall. It means an impassable object. And that just says that people are unable to do something. And I think that what we all know is that the human resilience is quite strong and quite powerful, and we triumph over every obstacle that we see in front of us, regardless of what it is. And that attempt to try and to do comes from a belief that we can overcome it. And when we talk about barriers in space, particularly in the built world, we're communicating that there is a wall that prevents us from achieving anything, and where we want to go, what we want to do, what we want to see, and so forth. So for me, I like to change the language a bit to be a bit more open-ended, in a way that allows you to see the other side of that quote unquote barrier. And when I refer to it as friction points, and friction to me is different than a barrier. Friction it's difficult, but not impossible. And so how do we make things passable, or things easy, or things accessible, is to remove frictions, but also to see those quote unquote barriers as frictions, not as walls, not as barriers, so that we can start removing them. It's one of those, the age old sort of concept. In order to fix a problem, you need to see it and you need to know it. And in the case of us, we love to be able to help educate people on the values and benefits of universal design by inviting people to see what points of friction exist in your home, in your workplace, etc., so that you can start to solve each friction point and recognize that some friction points are shared. Right? I mean, if I'm 85 years old in a walker, perhaps if I am in a wheelchair, perhaps if I just came back from back surgery and have issues, or if I'm 8 years old, I might have the same friction point when it comes to reaching for a glass in the cupboard in my kitchen. And if we solve for the friction point, we solve for the challenges of all 4 or 5 of those cohorts, those individuals. And it's a very kind of upside down approach to solving a design problem, that I think is a little bit easier than going the other way around and say, oh, I got to solve for someone who's 85 years old. I got to solve for someone who's in a wheelchair. Oh, I got to solve for people under the age of 10. And it becomes a daunting process as opposed to looking at it from the friction outward. So I love that process. I love friction points. I love the approach to identifying friction points. I love the approach of thinking about friction in the context of ability, and how we help people understand the process and how to think through to solve them.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And once you solve the friction points, then you are able to make it a more inclusive community. And people, I don't think they understand that. I think a lot of people think about accessibility as something they have to do just to meet a requirement, and they just do the bare minimum. And one of the things we have to do better is educating people not only about aging in place and the friction points that apply to each individual group and person and persona, if you will, but also just making sure that people know that by eliminating friction points, you are eliminating what I call intentional or unintentional ableism is what it is, or discrimination, some people would say, um, as well. And I think it's really important for people to understand, because I don't really think they look at people with disabilities or seniors as like, oh, we're discriminating against them like they would any other minority or protected class. I don't know if you see that at all.
Yeah, I do. Look, I mean, I think that people have biases, cognitive biases that prevent them from putting themselves into the shoes of others, right? And we see that across the board. We see that in race. We see that in religion. We see that in culture. It's inherent, and a lot of it has to do with if I can't see it, um, if it's not in front of me, then it doesn't affect me. And so we have a lot of it. A lot of people either unaware of the situation because they're just not exposed to it, or they choose to be unaware of the situation because they don't want to be exposed to it. And a lot of it is pushing things aside. And so as a society, we struggle with that. And we've struggled with it through history. I mean, it's a thing. And I think that the irony is that disability affects everybody. It is affects across gender, socioeconomic, culture, race. At some point, unfortunately, issues happen, and in some cases, it's almost human nature. This 70% of people over the age of 65 acquire some form of disability, mobility, cognitive, sensory, and these kinds of things. So it's almost an inevitability that we're gonna have accessibility challenges as humans. Period. And I think we don't realize that we will very soon when in 2030 when the 77 million people will be over the age of 65 in America, and 76 million people will be under the age of 18. So there's going to be a point in time where there'll be more people who are older than younger. And that what people are calling is the silver tsunami will be reality basically for everybody. So that being said, I think, I feel like it's more than just a good thing to do. I know we talk about DEI and diversity and equity and inclusion. And there's obvious benefits of that, to be thinking about it. But a lot of people push it into a place of, well, it's nice to have, and well, it's it's kind of it's a good thing to feel good about taking care of somebody or helping someone out. But there are actually, economic benefits, because people who perhaps are unfortunate to have a disability, perhaps or not. I mean, some people, it's a great thing and they celebrate it. Have money. I mean, they have dollars and to buy, to spend. Um, we have money to give, and so businesses can benefit. I mean, if you a home, for example, there's a study that was done not long ago, but if you make your home adaptive, there's a chance that the property value would increase by up to 10%, because once again, more as buyers age, they need homes that are equipped for them to live comfortably. And we've also seen, there's been a study that if you have a retail or hospitality, like hotel or event space, you have potential to make 18% more income, because you now are allowing your space to be more acceptant of more people that have more money. So there are economic benefits to space being more accessible and more inclusive. It's not just a nice thing to have.
Yeah, and there was a Forbes article you had sent me a couple weeks ago about that too. And I think it's really important that people are starting to talk about these issues on a more mainstream level. You also sent me an article recently about entertainment venues,
Oh,
and
yeah.
which
I mean,
is huge.
totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's amazing how many spaces, how many public spaces, private, but with public access, that are not accessible, that just sort of, sort of forgo an entire audience, or just sort of forget about an entire audience in some cases. I think that just by putting a ramp and a grab bar, in a space is like not even close to being sufficient in a lot of cases. And I think now that mental health has become more prevalent and there's been more awareness around various mental health issues, um, we're starting to see how disability overlaps and sort of brings in more people um, into this kind of minority majority that exists in the United States and around the world. And so that may help create some awareness around this issue. That may help identify that, okay, um, certain types of sound and certain types of light, certain types of colors can trigger certain effects with different types of people that can prevent them from functioning properly in space, that will basically influence designers to think differently, event producers to think differently, et cetera. So I think we're just starting to scratch the surface in terms of people's understanding of what they can do. That doesn't necessarily degrade or diminish the experience, but actually improves it and optimizes it for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a huge opportunity that more people need to capitalize on. There is even people with autism that need sensory rooms at, for example, an entertainment venue or a library.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
not everybody has to be like visible too. There are people, like you said, that are invisible, mental health, autism, different things that you can't see that need that accessibility and that barrier free type of design. By the way, what are your thoughts on the whole barrier free movement, the whole barrier free design?
Well, I mean, look, I think once again, it's my point that I raised earlier about barriers. I don't see thresholds in doors, or thresholds in showers as barriers, as much as I see as points of friction that can be removed, so people can live more freely and operate more freely in their homes. I think, to me, it's about living without friction, right? Just sort of frictionless. And so it's almost like, an object in motion stays in motion. I'd love for people to live and continue their longevity without as many with the least amount of friction possible. And if the physical environment can no longer be points of friction for them to live freely, then that's a good thing. And that's my mission in life. I want to basically eliminate the scarcity of accessible live, work, learn, and travel spaces in America and around the world as a mission. And I think in order to do that, we need to be doing it. We need to be thinking about how we help people live more freely in their lives. And so for me, it's about friction. So that's just me getting stuck on that word barrier, but I love just more people in the space solving more problems is good for everybody. And I'd like to do my part in being able to contribute to helping to grow the community, helping people who are specialized in the space make more money, have more economic opportunities, and get work. Because I think that it's only the beginning of I think, well, this movement's been going around since 1967, right? Since civil rights law was passed, and I think that there's an obligation, a commitment to all of us to be able to do what's right. But we all need to know that there's economic incentive in being able to do that, and there is business out there for people.
Yeah, that's so true. And you already are doing your part uh, by even doing your not just doing your company, but also you're a very outspoken advocate on issues like work from home and the benefits that people with disabilities can bring to the economy. So you're very diverse, and I think that's great because more people need to have the freedom to work from home. Um, that is definitely an accommodation.
Yeah, I agree. Look, and I'm trying to do more speaking and trying to get out and to talk to companies, architects, developers, builders, corporations that build structures, retail, and just help them understand the challenges that people face and how they can solve for accessibility and inequities, in the built environment. So that's a very important passion of mine, and I'd like to be one of many champions out there spreading the word and hopefully making a good impact on the communities. The PBS show that I was on, it was on October, which is the National Accessible Employment Awareness Month, but Disability Awareness Month for employees. And we talked a lot about inclusion in the workplace, but one of the things that I was really kind of focused on was the fact that the pandemic has created a unique opportunity where working from home has become a thing, and the technology that has been advanced, artificial intelligence that helps us to basically function as if we're in the office but at home, and it introduces a workforce that, forgetting about going back to the office, it introduces a workforce that never was able to get into the office because of various levels of disability. And so there's a really interesting movement that I like to be a part of. And, in some cases we are in helping in building out, the home offices, these kinds of things for our clients, to build out economic opportunity and build a base so people can actually work and engage in the work. And I think companies need to acknowledge that. They need to look for that. They need to hire for that, because these we all can sit on the computer and we can all be productive. And so there's a huge opportunity there. So I'd like to think that the more of us that are out there talking, your show, I mean, the show is a fantastic vehicle to get the message out. We do more of that, I think we can do more good.
I agree with you. Um, was there anything that you noticed around the world that they do better that we can improve on as a country?
Wow, yeah, and we're pretty good, but we're not the best. We're not the best. There's some great work that's done in Finland. We've seen some great work that's done in Japan. I mean, Japan has some challenges, as do a lot of large industrialized nations do. But for example, in Japan, the entire population is aging, right? I mean, it's not like the number one country that has the least amount of births is Korea. So actually South Korea. But in the Asia, it's becoming a growing issue, and so you're getting people that are getting older that disability and ability challenged is becoming a kind of a common theme in various different places, whether or not that's at home, that's in retail and transportation, because public transportation is widely used and more widely used than here in the US. So there's really good work that's being done to simplify. In Japan, in places like Zurich and in Switzerland, there's some great work that's done that there's a really great social services that are available free. So there's access to services, there's access to healthcare. These are things that are state level and state funded programs that make accessibility mandatory and available for everybody at no extra charge. I mean, it's unfortunate that in the US, a lot of the special care in some cases comes at an additional cost, and that in a lot of ways is a barrier for most people to lean in, and to make a lot of that good stuff affordable is also a challenge to the system, where a lot of corporations are stepping up, providing grants, a lot of organizations, nonprofits are raising money and funds and all that, but it's not as universal. It's not as available as in some other places. So I think that there are some communities, some countries, some cities that just do a better job in general. But I think we have an obligation in the U.S. because we're a very commercial-driven organization, or commercial-driven country. We talk about independence as our kind of our constitution, but we're not as independent as we like to think we are. And so I think there's an obligation for us to kind of do more. And if we can make it affordable, and we can do more, period one, if we can make it affordable for everybody, I think then the access story starts to kind of make sense and reconnect the dots. So, I mean, look, there's a long road ahead of us. We're by far not the first, but we can be the best.
Amen to that. So if people want to join Access Built or get involved, or they want to work with you as a client, what do they have to do?
Well, you can just go to accessbuilt.com. That's accessbuilt.com, and just book an appointment. We have free consultations, 30 minutes. Call us and we will be happy to talk and understand your challenges and see how we can help. And then also email me at alex.normen at accessbuilt.com, and be happy to see how we can work together and have you join the team.
Yep, and I will include all your information in the description of this episode. And also, if you want to hear more about Alex's interesting and varied views, not just on design, but on other topics in regards to real estate and work from home and different things, he's got a podcast.
Yeah, it's a podcast. Right back at you. It, right? Yeah, no, it's the Real State podcast. So you can stay tuned on that. It's available on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. So we have a lot of fun. We talk about trends in the built world and its impact on communities. And Garrett, you've been on the show. We've invited a lot of our friends in the community on the show, and people that are doing some really interesting work on the ground that we'd like to share. So please tune into that show when you get a chance.
Yeah, we will include all of that. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you on and have this interesting conversation. And you can always come on whenever you want. And your co-hosts, I've already extended him too, but he's always welcome to come on.
Yeah, we'll love it. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. And guys, stay tuned for other episodes. I know it's been a while, but because of the new video format, just trying to make sure I have the most interesting guests, and I don't want to just throw out anything for you guys. I want to make sure we get the most special, informational, and entertaining episodes to spread the message of love and inclusion. And remember that love will save the world. And peace out.